Hello, race fans, and welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. I am Bice, and I'm joined by my partner, Paul Carruthers, who is communications manager for MotoAmerica. Hi, Paul.
Hey, how are you, Sean?
I'm doing well. I've got to start with a little bit of a story this week. First of all, we're going to have Mathew Scholtz on, and the story I'm going to tell, which I think is entertaining, and probably I will be the only one to feel that way, but heck, if I enjoy it, I guess I'll be doing okay. But it'll relate to Mathew a little bit, and it won't immediately be understood why it relates to him, but we'll get it at some point along the way. So let me start this story. First of all, Paul, since you are originally from Australia, you may know this, but what do you know what a kudu is?
A kudu?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
The other reason I thought you might know what a kudu is because something you and I have never talked about, but when you lived in San Diego and your mom and dad do, I mean, heck, you live in the city that has the world famous San Diego Zoo. So I thought there might be a kudu. I bet there is a kudu in their collection there. It's an antelope, which is kind of odd that the Western song about the deer and the antelope playing, because there aren't really antelope that I know of in the U.S. They're more in other countries. But a kudu is a particular kind of antelope that resides in South Africa. And so this is the beginning of my story. South Africans have a game called Bakdrol Spoog. Have you ever heard of that, Paul?
I have not.
Okay. Well, here's what the game is, or the sport is. So kudu are very elusive creatures. You don't often see them, but you see evidence of them everywhere, I guess, when you're out in the bush or whatever, and they're droppings. And kudu droppings are kind of like little, almost like cocoa puff kind of things. And so Bakdrol Spoog is actually known as kudu dung spitting. It's a sport where you pick up a pellet, which is one of these droppings, and you try to see how far you can spit it. And it's an actual sport, which Afrikaners play it a lot in South Africa, of which Mathew isn't necessarily an Afrikaner. Afrikaners are obviously a certain region or type of people in South Africa, but Mathew is from an area of South Africa where it's a pretty popular sport, and there's like world records. Somebody spit one of these things 51 feet. So it's a big time competition, and yeah.
Okay, wait. So you're spitting shit?
Yeah, you pick up these little pellets, which literally it's antelope poop, but it's in these little tiny pebble things, and you put one in your mouth, and you see how far you can spit it. And I think if they sit there long enough, they kind of dry out. So maybe it's not so bad. But yeah, I don't know who got it in their mind to put one of those in their mouth.
You might be pretty good at that because you're spitting some shit right now.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So we're gonna have Mathew on. Paul, why don't you introduce him, and then we'll ask Mathew about what his record is for how far he spit one of these if he's ever done it. So go ahead.
Well, Mathew Scholtz is obviously one of I don't even know where to begin. Now I feel like my mouth's full of shit. How are you doing, Mathew? Let's just bring you in and we'll talk to you.
Okay. Just to set the record on the straight here, I promise you I have not been putting buck feces in my mouth and spitting them recently.
It's funny, Mathew. I've never talked to you about that before, I don't think, but I have talked to your dad about it. Now, you're familiar with the sport, am I right?
I have heard of people doing something similar, but yeah, I'll just stick to riding motorbikes and not spitting buck feces.
It's actually, believe it or not, it's a big sport in your province, which is, I think it's KwaZulu-Natal. Isn't that where you're KZN?
Yes. KZN, yeah.
Apparently they have huge festivals where this goes on, so you might want to get in on that when next time you go back home. I think you and Kiara would be pretty good at it. Maybe I don't know.
Leave that to the locals.
Sean, where do you come up with this stuff?
I was watching some show. I think it was like one of those nature shows, like Jack. why can't I know the guy's from actually Columbus, Jack. He's got that show about animals. Anyway, he talked about going to South Africa and this sport that they have, and he actually did it himself. So it was pretty bizarre. But I mean, Matthew, you know what a kudu is, I'm sure, don't you?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay. but that's as much as you want to know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very popular buck to make biltong from.
Oh, to make
Sorry,
oh
guys,
to make
just took
what?
my headphones out of my ear here, but yeah, I mean, kudu are very well known to make very, very good biltong, and they hunted very often back home. But they are huge.
Yeah,
Buck.
they look pretty big, and they crap a lot too. So that's
Well,
that's what
luckily,
that's.
so that they don't want to have
Yeah.
a shortage in the sport.
Oh no, you got to have so that's all we need to say about that. Let's move on and talk to Matthew about racing in MotoAmerica. So go ahead, Paul. You can start if you want.
Well, Matthew, obviously we're getting very excited for the new season, and I'm sure you are too. You're back in. Are you in Georgia now?
Yes, yeah. I got here towards the end of February, so just been getting settled in and training, and got one more test coming up next week, Tuesday. So really, just looking forward to getting back on the Superbike.
Now, the main thing for you this off season with the testing and stuff's been the new electronics, correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, last year we just had a Yamaha kit box, and fortunately for me, this year the Westby guys really stepped up, and they got the Morelli system, and things are just really complicated. So it's gonna take us a couple of days just to get things sorted out. But we've got a brilliant team. We hired Herschel to kind of take care of the electronic side, and it's been really positive so far. I mean, I can definitely feel big improvements on the bike. So I think it's just kind of getting everything fine tuned, and yeah, we should be good to go when the first race rolls around on April 5th.
It's funny, Matthew. I talked to your crew chief, Ed Sullivan, about this, and I know last year you kind of lamented the fact that you didn't have those electronics because it obviously is a bit of a game changer in Superbike, especially when you're at the sharp end of the stick like you are. So I know that it was something you really wanted, and they stepped up and delivered it for you this year. But from what I heard, the first test that you had, Ed felt like, yeah, it sure is the proof of concept because it really made a difference in you. And I heard one of the big areas that it helped you is an area that's a bit of an Achilles heel with you, which is your starts off the line. Can you talk about that a little bit? What you were struggling with before and how this may help?
Yeah, obviously just doing a couple of laps out, the kit box that we had last year was really good for us. But just unfortunately, when the last couple of laps came around, I felt that it really hindered our performance slightly. But I've got to say a huge thank you to the Westby team and to Trig. They definitely listened to me, and they got to the new system, which I felt is going to really propel us forward. So it's been very positive so far, but I can see how you can get lost using this system. There's so many different things that you can change. So we just got to keep our heads down and just carry on working hard. But like you said, Sean, last year my starts were terrible. I qualified on the first or second row a couple of times, and in the first corner I'm sitting in 10th, 11th, 12th kind of thing. And unfortunately, this year the field is so stacked with brilliant riders, fast guys. Gagne coming back from the Superbikes, the two Yosh guys, the two Graves guys, you got Lewis. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that if you don't start out front and the front guys pull that gap, you're never going to catch them. So I'm just really happy that we're working hard to kind of fix those areas that we struggled in last year.
That's cool.
Hey, I want to go back. Let's go back in time a little bit because I think it's interesting, and a lot of people don't know that. Like, a lot of you made friends with a lot of the guys that you race with now, way back as a kid in Rookies Cup. Who exactly would our listeners know that you raced with back then?
Well, I went to the Red Bull Rookies Cup in 2008, and Bobier was actually there from 2007. So, through the 2007 season, I was kind of watching every single race, looking Cameron Bobier was obviously one of the faster guys. So, and then 2008, when I got to the Rookies Cup, he was in the 125 GP team with Mark Marquez. So I kind of met Bobier then. Gagne, JD Beach was there 2008 when I got there, and then 2009, Hayden Gillum, Jake Gagne, Benny Solis, a couple of guys that came over to the European series. So that was really cool. It's actually, so when I moved to this championship at the end of 2016, I kind of had, friends here. And also myself and Jake Gagne were Moto2 teammates in the Spanish Championship in the 2011 season. So, fortunately for me, I had friends moving here, so it was really easy to fit in.
Yeah, it's got to make it easier. You come here and you see some familiar faces.
Yeah, for sure. And
in addition to Sean's.
The other thing, Matthew, beyond the MotoAmerica riders, I mean, there were a lot of riders who are in Moto2, MotoGP now that were with you during that Rookies Cup. Can you tell us about some of those guys, some of those names?
Oh, I mean, there were a couple of guys, Louis Salam, who unfortunately passed a couple of years back. There, I'm trying to think of a few guys. Zarko was there in 2007.
Yep.
He's not racing in MotoGP. I can't really think of too many guys off the top of my head, but it really seems that quite a few of the Rookie Cup guys have really spread out and they're racing at the top level around the world somewhere. So I think that really gave me a good racing background growing up, because I spent 3 years there, and I think that taught me a hell of a lot, racing on the different European series. And then in 2008, we had the Europe versus the American guys shootout at the Indianapolis circuit. So, riding in the Rookies Cup really taught me so much, and just, traveling to the different circuits and racing with the world's best guys, I think that really stepped up my racing level.
When you went there, didn't Brad Binder go with that year too from your country?
Yes, I think Binder got there in 2009. And
okay.
Yeah, and to me, I definitely think that he's the main guy to win the Moto2 championship this year. So that'll be cool if we see the South African flag flying on top of the Moto2 class. That'll
be cool. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, since you did ride with all those guys when they were kids and you were a kid, which one of those guys stood out to you as the fastest guy? And I mean, it doesn't have to be the guy that's the fastest now, but who at that point in time, when you're a kid and you're on the grid with these other guys, which one of those guys that you mentioned was the guy to beat?
Well, I mean, when I got there in 2008, I think it was actually JD Beach won the Red Bull Rookie Cup title that year, So obviously I was looking up to JD, being like, this is the guy that I need to be like to actually win the Rookies Cup, And then now we both racing in the MotoAmerica Superbike class this year, and so I think it's going to be really, really cool. He's a brilliant rider, same as every guy here racing in the Superbike class. So this year is going to be a hell of a dogfight, but I'm looking forward to it.
Matthew, we've talked to Jake Lewis about this a little bit, but you obviously aren't quite as tall as Jake, but you're a big guy. I jokingly call you a Power Ranger because you look like one of my son's Power Rangers when he was a kid, and you used to play with him too, so you know what I'm talking about. But I have this funny photo that I love to look at from time to time with you standing next to Tony, because you guys are good friends, obviously, and your stature is quite different from him. Do you think that comes into play at all? Does the bike feel small to you? And do you think it's better to be smaller or to be your size to handle a super bike? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, I definitely think that being taller has its advantages and its disadvantages. Obviously coming off the corner, I do lose out slightly, but I feel that in the flip flops and in the braking zone, I can definitely make up time. And with my longer, lanky legs, I feel that I have more leverage riding the bike. But I've always been a relatively taller guy. So I'm just used to just riding on motorbikes and just being bigger than everyone else. But I'm a skinny guy, so I don't think it makes too much difference.
Talk to me about the coming season. Obviously, the electronics has stepped up. You've already proven that you can win races against these guys, at least in the rain, and you're competitive. I mean, every week you say you get these starts sorted out. God, my English is horrible. I'm starting to sound like I'm a South African with a mouth. I got a mouthful of Hulu crap or something. I don't know. Kudu. Anyhow, so when you get started in this championship, how important is it to get off to a good start? Because I know, like last year, for example, Cameron got off to a horrible start, and he really had to gain some momentum in the second half of the series. And luckily, it kind of switched with Tony. But from that first race forward, how important is it to just really get a leg up on people?
I think that with how strong the field is this year, I think if you slip up once, it's gonna really cost you. And I think everyone's times and speed are really close, so you got to always make sure that you're on the ball. And unfortunately, last year I put the bike down a couple of times, so that didn't work out too well. But you know what I mean? You got to start off on the right foot, and it kind of sets your year right for you, or else it turns into a slight panic. But I think that consistency is going to be a big thing this year.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't afford to have DNFs, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Even if you finishing fourth or fifth, at least you picking up serious points rather than ending up in the gravel trap.
It's funny, Matthew. Paul talked about last year, and really, man, the first race of the season at Road Atlanta, you got to Super Pole. So you actually got your first Super Pole in your first race, technically on a Superbike in that class. So you did get off to a good start last year, certainly in qualifying. Thinking back to then, did that surprise you to get out of the gate that quick and well?
Yeah, for sure. I've always been relatively good on the qualifying tire. I feel that if I have a grip, that I can be one of the fastest guys. So last year the qualifyings were definitely one of my strongest suits. So I think this year we got to just work more on the consistency throughout the whole the race pace. But I mean, it was really special last year to have my family out and to qualify first for my first ever Superbike race. And it really surprised me. But I think that we were on a very good footing, rolling into the 2018 season. We had a pretty similar bike that we had in the Superstar class in 2017. So we knew that the bike was kind of nearing its peak performance, and I think that everyone else was still trying to work out their settings and getting their bikes right.
So, Matthew, what do you think of when you think back to Road America last year? And this is a loaded question. I want to just leave it at that and see what you say about it. Do you look back at that round fondly, or what do you think about that race weekend?
Definitely not. I was on the struggle bus all weekend long there. It didn't help that we had a test in Virginia about 2 weeks prior, and half-sided my brains out and broke my foot, and I didn't really go to the doctor. So I just rocked up there, and I was hurt, injured. The new tire wasn't gelling well. So it was just a nightmare weekend for me. And, I put it down in the first and second race. First race was just me being silly. I kind of tucked to the front trying to catch up to, I think it was Roger or maybe Gerloff. And then the second heat, I was just kind of panicking slightly. I could tell that the front three or four guys were starting to gap me. And I just came into the third last corner and had a massive high side, and it was a little bit silly, rather than just settling for a fifth, sixth kind of thing and taking points. I just felt that I had to be contending for the podium in every single race, and maybe that's the wrong attitude. And I really have to apologize to the team for that. But as long as you learn from your mistakes and you move forward, you should be fine.
Well, I mean, I actually bring that up for a reason, and let me just say, it was a bit of a turning point for you, not in a good way. And I know a lot of it had to do with that rear tire, that larger rear tire that kind of caught you out and had some issues with. But I want to ask you about this because again, I spoke with Ed Sullivan, your crew chief, about this, and he feels that even with the early testing that you've done, that the electronics have probably helped with that rear tire issue, as well as the fact that you're more acclimated to it with racing on it for several rounds. But he thinks that the electronics is really going to make a difference for that. Do you feel that? Have you had enough laps to feel that with that tire?
Well, I mean, I probably spent about 3 or 4 months off of a Superbike. So we went to Jennings and had 2 days there, and that was more just making sure that everything worked well and the bike was running fine. And then we went to, I think it's PBIR on the Sunday, and we worked on engine braking there. But I mean, I think it was a really positive couple of days for us. Not just with us changing to the Pirelli software and getting that dialed in, but also getting the new Suter swing arm. I think that was quite a big step forward for us. It kind of brings the old feeling back that I had using the older, smaller Dunlop rear tire. Once we changed to the taller one last year, I kind of lost my feeling of coming out of the corners, and I wasn't sure of where the rear tire was, and it always felt like it was super low coming out of corners. And it was just, 1 second everything was perfectly fine. The next second I was completely sideways out of the seat, and it kind of got a little bit scary towards the end. But we obviously worked really hard, and we made things better. But I think with the new software system and the Suter swing arm, I think it kind of brings back that old confident feeling that we had. So I'm really looking forward to I'll test next week Tuesday, and then we've got 2 more days after that, and hopefully we'll be dialed in for the first race coming up.
Hey, how nice of it is, Sean, to just bring up your worst weekend. I mean, who does that to somebody? I don't get it. I mean, I understand the stories about the freaking antelopes and stuff, but I don't know why you just bring that up, Sean.
It was kind of trying to move. It was kind of trying to set up the idea that Mathew was going to say, well, yeah, I mean, that changed for us, but it was a challenge that we faced, and now we're onward and upward, and we've solved it. And because really, Ed told me that he felt like even in the little limited amount of testing you guys have done, that it's not a fact, that rear tire is not a non-factor for you anymore. He told me that. I don't know if you completely feel that way, Mathew, but he certainly does. So it's good that your crew chief believes that for sure. But that's why I brought it up.
Well, I mean, our second day out on the new software, we were as quick as we were last year when our bike was at its absolute peak. You know what I mean? So we only moving forward. And I think that's going to really be a good point for us this year, is that I feel that most of the other teams they just looking for little bits here, little bits there, whereas me and the Westby team are taking big strides forward. So I'm really looking forward to actually getting out on track with the rest of the guys and comparing it to them. Unfortunately this year we don't have a testing date, so we won't be able to see how the other guys are doing until we get to the first round. But things are looking really positive for us. I think that out of every team there, we have the most to gain.
It's probably tough for somebody from South Africa to consider any of the tracks your home track, but since you do live in Georgia and a lot of the team is located in Georgia, do you feel like Road Atlanta is kind of a home track for you?
It's definitely a home track in the sense that it's the closest to me, but it's not a home track in the sense that we have tests there or I go there often. This will only be my 3rd time there. This year, I went there first time 2017, and that was where we actually won our first super stock race. And then last year the season started off brilliantly for me there. So hopefully we can just bring home a couple decent results and just start off the season strong and carry on moving forward from there.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I mean, you actually have done well there, winning races in Superpole, and all that. So even though you haven't had a lot of laps there, do you like Road Atlanta, the layout of the track? Is there something about it with the elevation that suits you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that it's pretty. I think that the first section is pretty similar to some of the tracks back home. How it's very tight and technical, and you kind of have to use a lot of upper body strength to go through the flip flop sections. And then when you're coming down to, I think it's turn 10, it's a really hard braking zone, and into the final corner. I think that's really one of my stronger points of my riding. Are the hard braking zones and the flip flops. I think that the road Atlanta track really suits me in that sense. And last year I felt that we lost a lot of time down the back straight, but obviously I can't give out numbers here, but we found quite a bit more horsepower and torque, so I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Bouncing back to last year again, real quick. It's no secret that you were in line for that Yoshimura Suzuki ride. Did that add any pressure? Because it seemed like it was, there was 3 or 4 guys that were it seemed like competing for that ride, virtually the entire season. And did that weigh on you at all?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. No matter what anyone says, how could you not think about it? It was the Yoshimura factory ride, and obviously it's a very coveted ride, and everyone wants to be there. But I mean, obviously, I did think about it from time to time. But once you get to the racetrack, you kind of put all those things behind you and just concentrate on your job at hand there.
Matthew, it's no secret that in the off season, Chuck Giacchetto, the team manager, had mentioned this, that you guys were possibly looking at some other brands to ride on, maybe Aprilia, maybe Ducati, and you went back to Yamaha. What were your views on that? Were you interested in trying another bike? Did you want to have some, maintain the familiarity and kind of add the electronics to a bike that you had and see how that went? Where did that whole thing sit with you?
I mean, that's not really my business. I'm just a guy who hops on and just rides. But whatever the guys give me, I'll just ride my absolute best. But I think that we were trying to look for some factory support, which would have been really cool. And unfortunately, I don't think that it worked out. But we just kind of thought that stick with the bikes that we know. We have a really good base set up for it. So. And we knew probably with about 3 or 4 rounds that we were getting the Morelli system. So, we were confident either way, but it's very nice to be back on the Yamaha brand. I really love it. It's actually the only superbike that I've been on since 2015, 16. So Yamaha have been really good to us, and I'm happy to be back with them in the 2019 season.
And you rode an R1 in the Super GP championship in your home country that you won the championship in South Africa, correct?
Yes, actually in 2015 I started off riding the older model bike because they hadn't brought in enough of the newer R1s at that point. So halfway through 2015 got on the newer model, and I've been on that bike ever since then. And things have been over the last couple of years. 2016 won the South African Superbike Championship. 2017 won the Stock 1000 Championship here. Last year finished 4th and got Rookie of the Season. So it's been really positive, and I'm thankful to be back on a Yamaha this year.
But I have a quick question. When looking through your bio that actually Sean was nice enough to send me. I mean, I know you're a good motocrosser now, and you obviously had a lot of motocross success when you were young. What made you decide to make the switch to road racing?
I mean, when I first started doing motocross, I actually kind of thought that road racing was for sissies because there were no jumps. But
right.
I was just a kid then, and then I think when I was about maybe 12 or 13, those pit bikes, the 125 or the 110 little pit bikes that came out a couple of years back. They actually started a super motard championship back home, and first year out, I actually won that. And on the dirt, it seemed that I was pretty similar speed to everyone else. And then once we got onto the tar, I really seemed to be quite a lot quicker there. So one of the guys, Rod Gray back home, who was a ex national champion, suggested that I try out one of the road bikes, and I wasn't really that keen on the whole thing. And we went to a couple practice sessions, and it seemed cool, but I wasn't really interested. And then went to my first race at the famous Valcom track back home, where they used to host MotoGP rounds, and just the whole sense of slipstreaming and braking and banging elbows, it was absolutely crazy, and I've just absolutely loved it since then. And road racing's been my game since then. I've just absolutely loved the whole concept of the speed and braking, and just being super close to the guys riding at 180 miles per hour kind of thing.
But you still ride a lot of moto for training, Matthew. Tell us about you. What a typical day during the off season is like for you. I think you do a little bit of gym. You do run moto. Tell us about from the time you get up till you go to bed, what that's like.
Well, I mean, normally
you can leave out the good bits if you want.
Well, his girlfriend Kiara is back in South Africa right now, so I think he can tell us the whole deal right now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Or not. But yeah, normally just wake up, have breakfast, go to gym, just focus on core and strength training, and then maybe in the afternoon I'll go do a run or a cycle, a little cardio, and otherwise take out the motocross bike. But I think this year I've really stepped up my training program. I'm not just working on fitness, I'm actually working on my mental preparation and speed drills and eye tests, and just being more mentally ready and focused, and doing reaction tests and stuff. So I think that I'm at the peak of where I've been before. So things are looking good. Not just the bike is getting better, but I feel that I'm also getting better myself.
And I don't know if you're still doing this, Matthew, but I know last year you were working with Ken Hill. Are you still doing some stuff with him?
We haven't actually met up this year, but I'm sure at the track that we'll speak and stuff. He was a real big help last year to me. He came and helped me focus he came and helped me focus before some of the races, and gave me really good advice and stuff. And I actually have to thank the Ridiculous crew last year. They actually brought me out to one of their training camps, and they helped me there, trying to help with my riding position and so on. So Ken and the Rick crew, they were quite a big help last year, and I've got to thank them both.
Without giving too much away, trade secrets, what did they change? You said riding position. Do you ride differently now after spending some time with those guys?
No, more just small things like using the outside leg and putting it against the tank to sort of help the bike tip in quicker and stuff like that. Just little things just to try to help you out slightly. Because I kind of get into this really bad habit of charging corners too hard, and then I lose drive and coming out. So they are really worked on trying to help me focus on the exit of the corner. So it was quite a different mindset to me.
So you're one of these riders that when you go into a corner, you actually hang your leg out. Did you always do that? Did you start doing that because of Ken Hill? Did they try to stop you from doing that? What's the situation with that hanging that leg out?
I have no clue, Sean. I just ride, and just sometimes it just naturally comes out, and I'm not even really conscious of myself doing it, But I think it's just more of a balance thing, more to me, because sometimes when the bike starts backing in a lot, and you kind of the rear starts to feel like it's getting further and further from you. I feel that if I put my leg out, it kind of brings the bike back in, and it gives you more feel of the handlebars, But I mean, each to their own. Some of the MotoGP guys keep their legs out, some guys don't. So I guess just whatever works for you.
Well, it is funny, and I want to ask Paul this question. Paul, so Your dad Kel raced, and did he ever race and drag a knee? Was he in the era before that? Did he transition? And what does he say? Because I know he watches a lot of MotoGP and certainly MotoAmerica as well. Does he think it's odd about these riders sticking their leg out? And did he ever drag a knee? Can you tell us about that?
I don't think he would have dragged a knee. I think he was right on the cusp of that because
Right.
obviously he was, he worked with Kenny Roberts and got him going, but it was a little bit after that that Kenny Roberts actually started dragging his knee, so it's not like that's something that dad brought into the thing. Because I think, obviously when he raced, the tires and et cetera, I mean, it wasn't, the lean angles were pretty impressive when you look back at those old bikes, but it wasn't the same to,
I mean, back then men were men. Looking at photos and videos and stuff, those guys were crazy. And I didn't really look back into motorcycle history that much, but the Barber Museum that we go to, that was really cool to actually go and look at the old photos and videos and the bikes that these guys ran. I've got thicker bicycle tires than those guys ran on their bikes back then. And kudos
yeah, and
to
drum
them. Like
brakes.
when men were, oh, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunately for us these days, I think safety is one of the biggest aspects of the organizers, and I think that's really really great. I think that the Moto America Championship have chosen tracks that they feel are very safe, and that's a really good point. To always make sure that the guys are safe. Obviously, motorbike racing is a very dangerous sport, but you want to make it as safe as you possibly can. Fortunately, these days, we got really good full face helmets, leathers, sand traps and stuff. So, as dangerous as it is, it's as safe as it can get.
Yeah, well, I mean, people always ask my dad, like, how did he go his whole career with, he only broke his wrist, and that was like when he was 16. But they always ask him, like, how did you do that without crashing? But back then, you didn't do it because the bad things were going to happen. I mean, there wasn't any margin for error, and if you crashed, chances are you're going to get badly hurt or killed. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
hard to feed the kids the next week if you can't race. So that was, that it was a different era and a different time. But um, yeah, so huge differences there. I don't know what he thinks about the leg dangle. I mean, he loves MotoGP and he probably thinks it's like anything else. It's just part of the game and things have evolved and if it works, it works. So he just can't believe like, the lean angle now. It's like, well, when you watch Mark Marquez crash, he basically crashes 2 or 3 inches if he low sides because that's how
Yeah.
low he is to the ground. So it's like it's not a big deal. And he's got it down to he's perfected the art of almost crashing on purpose sometimes to just kind of find where the limit is, I guess.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you've seen. Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen that the guys now can. I mean, the bikes are so quick. We're getting speeds up to 190, 90 miles. You know what I mean? And the guys crash and they stand up and they're perfectly fine. But if you look at the bike, it's all mangled and in pieces and tangled up. You know what I mean? So it's really really cool to see how far things have come as far as safety goes.
The way your mannerisms are, I mean, you're like if I was to describe you to somebody, I would say, oh man, he's like the most low key guy in the paddock. He's really chill. Do do you do you do you ever? I mean, is when you're racing and stuff, do you maintain that same chill, or do you are you like frazzled, or what's the difference there? Are you the same?
Ah, shit in my pants. But I mean, that's just racing. I mean, you've got to be, scared. Yeah, you have to be, nervous. But it's kind of how you deal with being scared and nervous and putting all those feelings. You know what I mean? I mean, if you someone who says that you're not scared when you go out and you ride your bike, then you're either crazy or you're not pushing hard. But I think it's just kind of how you work with that and how you take it from there. You know what I mean? But I mean, I've been racing bikes since I was 7. You know what I mean? It's all part of the game, and you learn how to deal with those emotions. And I think that motorbike racing is one of those sports, 1 second you so angry you are punching the pit wall, the next second you crying because you had a terrible qualifying, next second you doing backflips off the podium. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, Matthew, I mean, since Paul brought this up, I'm going to have to go back and ask you another question about Road America, because that was the angriest I've ever seen you. And you know what I'm talking about when you when you were off the track and you wanted to get back in. And I think you calmed down after and everything was fine. But were you pretty upset with yourself? I mean, was that really one of the maddest you've ever been, or at least, you showed it that way, it seemed.
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I crashed out of the first race, so the second race came and was a little bit like, just be calm, don't do anything stupid, and I did something stupid and crashed out. And I didn't really care too much about myself. I mean, I was more worried about letting the team down. And I was, once I had sort of gathered myself after crashing, I just wanted to go and see how the bike was, so I could pick it up and maybe carry on. But the marshals were kind of shouting and telling me that I can't touch the bike, and they were trying to hold me back. And I'm really sorry, but I kind of gave the guy a little push, because all I was thinking of was picking up the bike and getting it back out there. But once I calmed down afterwards, I kind of said sorry and knew that it was completely my fault. You know what I mean? But I just think in those times, emotions are very, very high.
Well, just knowing how, to us, even keeled you are. I mean, we were all gutted for you because we knew how upset you were, and then we saw that, and we were like, we all loved the fact that you made a point to go back and kind of pat the corner worker on the back and kind of apologize to him, and the fact that you got a little bit of the red mist and you were just wanting to get back in there, and we thought you were quite the gentleman, actually, when everything came to the end of that moment, but. It was an interesting look into your character. Anyway, how much it means to you to be out there. So it's cool.
No, I mean
that was good.
I mean, for sure. Those corner workers. It's not their fault that you crashed. But when they're telling you that you can't pick up the bike, emotions run very, very high. But while we're on that subject, I have to actually thank, organizers and the corner workers and stuff, because without them, we wouldn't be able to get out on the track. So, thank you to them, really.
You know why he apologized, right?
so that they let him back in next time.
Well, he beat my ass.
Well, the thing is, it's like if he doesn't apologize, he gets fired. He goes back home and he's spitting out kudu shit.
Something he's never done. Hey, no, so speaking of back, they'll probably by now they probably have professional kudu spitting contests. But so Matthew, speaking of South Africa, I want to ask you about one thing, and it's the new TV, and particularly. I guess we can focus probably on the streaming stuff, but I know from your racing in Europe, you've got a lot of fans over there. Certainly, you have a lot of fans back in your home country. There's Andre Laubscher, I think is his name, the photographer who comes over and actually goes to 3 or 4 of our rounds because he loves you so much and likes to take photos. I know that tell us about, from your perspective as a person from another country with a lot of fans and family back home, are they going to be able to watch this streaming? What does this mean to them to be able to see this?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've got a ton of friends back home that always ask me how they can watch the races and stuff. And, unfortunately, last year, being Sports was only a US channel. So it was really hard for them to get on. But with this new TV package that the guys have, and I think it's called ViewLift, right? The new app that they have coming out, I think that's going to really be a big game changer for the series, because people from all over the world can actually watch it, and that doesn't just only bring more interest and it brings in sponsors and brings in money, So, no, I think that the from what I've heard, the sort of sport took a pretty big dive around 2013-14. But I think that the MotoAmerica group are really bringing things back, and they've obviously put in lots of money to make sure that we have a good TV package and everything. So things are looking good as far as the championship and motorcycle racing in this country goes.
Well, Sean,
Paul,
I
I've got a
think that's a
question for
good
you.
spot to end. Oh, go ahead. Come on, bring it.
I got one question for you, Paul. And actually, I don't even know if you can answer this, so I'm going to throw it out here. We've been getting a lot of comments, and you've probably seen them too, where people have said, "When does the pre-sale start for the Facebook, the MotoAmerica Live Plus streaming application?" Do you know the answer to that yet, or am I putting you on the spot too much?
No, you're fine. Chuck's in the office this week, actually, Chuck Axland, and that'll all be buttoned up this week, and all the information will be released, and we can start taking their money. It's kind of nice. I get phone calls and emails all the time, like, "Hey, I want to buy this. What? Yeah, I want to give you my money." And we're obviously all for taking money, so we're gonna get that sorted out and let people know this week. So I'm kind of excited about it. It's gonna be cool. We've
It's
the
gonna be great.
response to that has just been incredible. It's seriously, it's like, "Hey, I want to give you my money. How do I do it?" kind of a thing, which is all you can ask for.
Pretty
You know what I
great.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that the Moto America guys listened to what the fans wanted, and they actually went out and did it. You know, that just really shows how committed they are to actually growing the sport and pushing it forward.
Yeah, we mostly just raised the money from not paying Sean.
He doesn't
know that yet.
Money's good.
I'm just compensated by my enthusiasm. That's all it is. So it's all good with me.
All right. With that, I think we'll wrap this thing up and let Scholtzy get back to work. But Mathew, we appreciate you coming on the show, and we look forward to seeing you down in Road Atlanta. It seems like it's a long time since we've seen you, and it's always nice to see your smiling face. So we look forward to that.
No, I mean, likewise, guys. And while I'm on the air, I would just like to really thank the Westby team. You know, they've been really great. You know, they listened to me last year and got the parts that I felt necessary to propel us to the front. You know, and not just that, to Trig. You know, he's been like a second father to me, and he's made sure that everything's worked out for me. You know, helped me with my visa and stuff to actually get me here, and I'm living the absolute dream. You know. Maybe 3 years back, I was waitering tables and stuff, and I kind of gave up on my motorcycle dream, and now I've probably got one of the most factory bikes out there. So things are really looking good for me. So just thank you to everyone that's really supported me and helped me get to this point.
What a gentleman!
That's terrific. He's awesome. I got to say, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Mathew, for being on with us, and thanks, Paul. This was a good one.
Yeah, and thanks
so much,
to all
guys.
our listeners.
Appreciate you big time.
Yeah.
Thanks to all our listeners, and however you're choosing to get this podcast, keep doing it, keep listening, and subscribe. And as always, they come out on Saturday morning. So until next week, you guys take care of yourselves and be safe. And we'll chat again, Mathew.
Cheers, guys. Keep well.
Good. See you. Okay.